The relationship between Virgil Cole, the hired gunman, and Everett Hitch, a West Point graduate who felt the Army wasn't for him and that he sought to find himself in the Wild West, is explained at the opening of the film. They first got together over a dozen years ago when Everett supported Virgil during a shootout, and Everett had been the infamous person's second fiddle. But the two had been inseparable ever then. Virgil, a marshal and deputy in several places. They are shooters who only fire when it's permissible, when communities hire them as law enforcement officers that have an excessive number of villains. Cut to Randall Bragg, the biggest rancher outside of Appaloosa, who terrorizes the community and imposes their own laws with his troops. A teenage ranch hand witnesses in horror as the current sheriff and two deputies arrive at Bragg's ranch to arrest two of his men for the murder of a man and his wife. However, Bragg decides to take matters into his own hands and kills all three of them. Following their meeting with Virgil and Everett, the city fathers agree to Virgil's driving laws, which include my way or the highway, no discussion, and move on to the next town. The city fathers are left with little option, and in a matter of minutes, there is a disturbance in a bar due to two of Bragg's men peeing on the floor. They are approached by Virgil and Everett, who warn them to quit or face jail time. They don't stop and don't want to go to jail, so they call upon Virgil, who murders the two of them at the bar, while Everett deals with a third who emerges from a side room. After a day, Virgil and Everett meet with Bragg and his men in a tiny pub in the town. Virgil rejects Bragg's attempt at reconciliation since the previous marshal was a friend of Virgil's. After a tense standoff, Virgil informs them that they are not allowed to bring guns into the town going forward. Here comes Allison French, who just got off the train with just $1 in her pocket. She is initially noticed by Everett, who pursues her to a tiny eatery where Virgil is also having breakfast. Though Virgil appears to be infatuated with her, Everett yields to his advances. After announcing his candidacy as the city marshal, Allison flashes a smirk. In exchange, Virgil offers her a job at the neighborhood hotel, where she can likely remain for free if she plays the piano. Since she claims she isn't a whore, this is the only job that is accessible. Back at the law office, Everett and Virgil engage in a brief conversation about Allie, as she prefers to be called, with Everett seemingly pushing Virgil to pursue Allie while also allowing him do so. They then make the decision to go look into it after spotting some motorcyclists on a hill overlooking Appaloosa. As they arrive, they engage into a small altercation in which Virgil proves that Bragg has no authority anywhere, inside or outside the town, by hitting one man with the butt of his pistol. After a man swears in front of Allie in a pub, Virgil loses his rage and attacks the man. The man is so badly beaten by Virgil that Everett has to intervene. It is evident that Virgil is a man without ambiguity or nuance when it comes to right and wrong. He doesn't let much bother him, but when he becomes angry, he loses all self-control. Afterwards, Everett offers the man a drink and apologizes. When a local parent questions him about why Virgil doesn't say sorry, Everett responds that's not how Virgil is, and since they hired him, they'll have to accept the good and the bad in order to keep the town safe. It's hinted that a day, a week, or longer has gone by when Allie and Virgil arrive for breakfast. Clearly, they just shared a bed, and declare that Virgil is building her a house in the town where they will live together. Everett congratulates them and stays silent despite expressing his obvious astonishment and little annoyance that his friend hadn't notified him. Joe Whitfield interrupts breakfast to announce that he will testify that he witnessed the killings. After giving him a thorough examination to ensure the child is capable of handling the assignment, they leave to pick up Bragg. They find him in the open lavatory and use his irate but submissive men to pull him back into town at gunpoint. Here comes Bragg, who regrettably has a cell next to Joe with his round-the-clock security. He makes some threats that frighten the younger man. Allie's house is gradually being constructed in the interim. When she makes requests that Virgil is unable to fulfill, he sends Everett over to assist her. When Everett arrives, Allie corners him and gives him a kiss. However, after a brief period of enjoyment, he pushes her away and informs her that they are both with Virgil and not together. Clearly offended, Allie asks him to go. Everett doesn't tell Virgil about it, but he does tell the Hispanic prostitute he's been seeing about it. She informs him that Allie will ultimately tell Virgil about it, and he should be ready for the not nice spin Allie will give it. Two more police officers enter the office and claim to have accompanied the judge. They volunteer to babysit Bragg, and Virgil accepts after saying thanks. The Shelton brothers, skilled hired gunmen, arrive in town. Although they go out for hire for both legitimate and illicit reasons, Virgil is familiar with them. Following a brief exchange of words, Virgil asserts his authority, and the two brothers enter the hotel after seeing Virgil and Allie leave in a carriage for a countryside picnic. When the trial begins, Joe presents the damaging evidence, despite the fact that all of the Bragg lads testify in his favor. Not even Bragg's eloquent post-trial testimony can save him. The court gives Bragg the order to be hung in a different city after the child gives his testimony, telling him to mount his horse and ride out of town for his own protection. Bragg looks up at the Shelton brothers as the punishment is delivered. Everything appears to be going smoothly on the train, but shortly after it stops to replenish the water, the Shelton brothers emerge on a dry riverbed beneath it and reveal that Allie is tethered to a horse. If they don't free Bragg, they threaten to kill her. After some suffering, Virgil gives up Bragg, but according to their deal, he doesn't obtain Allie until they choose to let her go. Angry at having lost his prisoner, Virgil pursues them on foot as Everett takes the train back to town to retrieve his horses. After a day, they reunite while Virgil, who has been following the Shelton brothers, Bragg and Allie, on foot, finally catches up to them on horseback. After spotting several Indians approaching the group, Everett and Virgil spot Allie playing in a river while completely nude alongside Bragg. The two law enforcement officers seem upset, but their main worry is that the four individuals may be ambushed by the Indians. Virgil and Everett successfully repel the Indians' ambush, killing one of the Indians' horses in the process. Next, Virgil strikes a bargain with the brothers, promising to leave aside disagreements until they are all out of ambush range, and then resolve them. Allie approaches Virgil and Everett when they are on duty as a guard and sits between them, expressing her fear and acknowledging that her actions were incorrect. In response to Virgil's question about whether Everett believes she will sleep around once again, Everett says, Allie needs a man. Then, Allie tries to claim that Everett touched her, but when Virgil questions him about it, Everett disputes that Allie claims it happened. Then, Virgil expresses his belief that Everett's interpretation is superior to Allie's. After waiting for a while in anticipation of an attack, Everett delivers Bragg's pricey, thoroughbred horse to the Indians, strikes a peace deal with them, and they depart. When they reach a tiny town, Virgil and the two brothers decide to have a showdown. Everett remarks to Virgil that Allie isn't a loose woman. Rather, she simply wants to be the woman of the herd stallion while they're taking a break before their shootout. The stallion's tendency to fluctuate is the issue. Despite Allie's nature, Virgil continues to express his affection and want for her. Allie enters, clearly terrified. She responds that she is constantly afraid that she will lose everything and be left with nothing, while the guys tell her that they are not afraid because it is a necessary part of their work. For as long as Allie needs him, Virgil promises to always have her best interests in mind. Virgil and Everett learn that the town marshal they sent to guard Bragg is a relative of the Sheltons as they make their way to the stockyards to square off with the Shelton brothers. It's 4-on-2 when the marshal, Bragg, and the Shelton brothers take it to them. Everett kills the other brother after Virgil shoots the first brother, but he misses Bragg, who gallops off on a horse. Virgil and Everett are both hurt, but not seriously. Fearing that Virgil might be dying, Allie rushes to his side. They eventually complete construction on the house. Virgil wears a brace because his left knee was permanently damaged. They may even find some small amusement in everything that transpired, even Allie's transgressions. The town's authorities inform them that, despite Bragg's claims to the contrary, he was pardoned by the U.S. president. Nevertheless, everyone dismissed this as just hearsay. A while later, Bragg declares his reformation when he shows up in town looking dapper in a nice suit. He purchases the hotel and repaints it. If he obtained his money illegally is unknown. His attempts to patch things up with Virgil are met with resistance, and Bragg's actions indicate that Virgil's time as marshal is running out. The town fathers are clearly in his pocket. During their conversation, Virgil and Everett come to the conclusion that a man such as himself would not find much employment in Appaloosa. Because Allie is there, Virgil won't go, even if he's fine with Everett moving on if necessary. Everett may have sensed the shift in power since she saw Allie go upstairs to Bragg's room at the motel. Despite not seeming delighted about it, she does it. The following day, Everett seems disappointed in himself for killing the one man without being a law enforcement officer and offers the Hispanic girl a necklace along with the man's name. He declares his departure. He mounts his horses and rides to the hotel, where he enters the bar and hands the bartender a revolver and his badge while stating that it is for Bragg. Then Everett approaches Bragg, strikes him, and issues a challenge to a duel. Then, after upsetting and humiliating him with a slap, he goes outside to wait for him. After grabbing the gun, Bragg bolts from the hotel. As Virgil is arriving at the hotel, Everett's wife informs him that Everett is leaving. Virgil approaches Everett to find out what's going on, but Everett tells him to move aside, saying that this is the first time he's ever asked Virgil for anything. After a split-second gunfight that ends with Bragg dead, Everett escapes Appaloosa unscathed, climbs his horse, and gallops away. At the conclusion, Everett narrates that he allowed Allie and Virgil more time to resolve their differences, and that he is now returning to learning more about himself. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and see